Welcome, welcome. Come on in, come on in, come on in, come on in. Tell a friend, all black everything. Think it's light, big dreams, many streams. We are back with the new series. We've been lied to. Slash, did you know? Huh? Did you know? Back with the when the world was black. We coming again, right where we left off. Yes, indeed. Like you share, subscribe, thumbs up, like you hitchhiking. You know how we get it. Peace and love to my moms and pops, man. Love y'all for sure. Miss y'all like crazy. Mm. But we gotta go, you know, get to where we're going. Always love. Shout out. You know how we do it. Back at it. We're talking about some chronology now, huh? We're gonna see what the chronology do. How? An introduction to chronology. Okay, there's plenty of time periods discussed in this book. We cover some Homo erectus history going far as back as 2 million years ago, but most of this book details what deals with what happened between 130,000 and 3,000 BC. Needless to say, not a lot. A lot happened, excuse me. It's not easy to imagine 1,000 years ago. However, it's understandable if things get a little confusing. So let's talk a few basics before we begin. BC means before the common era, not Christ. But before Christ, it says in here. But most most modern historians don't use BC anymore. They prefer BP, which means before present, or BCE, which basically means the same as BC, but it stands for before the common era. Some even use conventions like 15 Kaya, 15,000 years ago, or KYA, 15 KYA. We're going to use the BC because that's what most readers will be familiar with. Occasionally, we will say things like 30,000 years ago, and only rarely will we throw it in. Throw it in. Throw in KYA or Kaya or MYA Maya, million years ago. So if we say 30,000 BC, that actually means 5,000 years ago because it's been a little over 2,000 years since the alleged birth of Christ. And if we say 16,000 years ago, that means 14 BC, 1400, 14,000 BC. Now, that said, you may want to think about what 1,000 years ago really means. Perhaps you could consider how different were were just 100 years ago and multiply that by 10. Now think about 10,000 or 100,000 years ago. That should give you some idea of how amazing it is when we say that our ancestors in South Africa hand paint had paint and glue factories 60,000 years ago. Let's also talk about something a little more complicated. Many historians and archaeologists don't name a lot of specific time periods, but instead use names for the various eras or ages of human culture, such as the Upper Paleolithic, or the Late Neolithic. But don't think that something like Neolithic age refers to the same time period in India as it does in Mexico, because so many human cultures spread by diffusion. These periods really only tell us about when different regions adopted a new phase of culture. In other words, the whole world didn't become Neolithic at the same time. When we use words like Paleolithic and Neolithic, we're just using them to help you understand the culture of the people we're talking about. You'll see such terms used in most other history books, so we'd be leaving you in the dark if we avoided using them. The historical periods. Historians and other scientists use many different terms to describe the periods of the past. The simplest distinction is that everything in the past is not always called history. History specifically refers to the past so far back as we have written record of what happened. Literally, his story. This goes as far back as ancient history, which is where we find the beginning of written languages around 3000 BC. Before that, it's called prehistory. Understand prehistory and history. They are different. Another way to break up the past is by looking at technology or the tools we used. After the Acheulean phase, the people of Africa were still in what's called the Stone Age, because until we developed the science of metallurgy and make iron, copper, and steel tools, we relied primarily on stone tools. Nothing wrong with it. I think we're gonna leave it right there. We're gonna keep it short, sweet, to the point. We're gonna come back and still wrap it up on the chronology tip. Here's a little bit taste of what's to come. See these young Africans of all distinction. Mm-hmm. You see that? You see it. Yeah, buddy. When the world was black, all black everything. Think it's plight. Big dreams, many streams. We back at it, back at it, back at it again. Yes, indeed. Appreciate y'all for checking us out. Like and share, subscribe, thumbs up, like a hitchhiking. We going in. Yeah, we going in. Yeah. Peace and love. Yeah, yeah. Peace and love. Yeah. Mm.